does Brock Purdy give you a better chance of winning in the playoffs than Jimmy? You think back to the Dolphins game, and that would have been an insane thing to suggest at the time.
Insanity.
But he feels more accurate, right? I mean, the numbers can tell us.
He's a more accurate passer.
Which is a double whammy, right? Because it's more yards after catch on a team that gets a lot of yak. And it's less turnover-worthy plays, to borrow from PFF.
Yeah, to me, he's more accurate, he's more athletic, and your passing game is more explosive. Now, there is an element, and I know Billy Beane quivers when he hears this, is these games mean more, and there's more on the line. And there's an element of pressure. Farhan's like, pressure doesn't exist. No, it does. It's called the playoffs. And guys, you know what? Get really tight and don't play as well. What we've seen from him, never seen one iota really of that, right? You're allowed a bad play, throw a pick, like welcome to football. But like it looks too big. Like you mentioned earlier, he looks frenetic. He looks scared. I don't mean like scared of football, just a lot going on, seeing ghost, however you want to put it. He hasn't shown that at all. But he does lack experience of ever, playing in a playoff game. But Justin Fields played in a playoff game, and they just lost 10 straight games, right? So it's coming to the NFL from college. There's only so much. Like he's played in bowl games. He's played in big games with ranked opponents. He's played in pressure-packed environments. I would say there's nothing quite like the NFL playoffs in terms of the amount of people watching his game come this upcoming weekend, whether that's Sunday afternoon or Sunday night or Saturday night or whatever. But as a player, you and I talk about that. The league will talk about it, but the stadium's packed, right? He doesn't, whether there's 5 million people watching, 100 million people, what really, obviously the Super Bowl's a different animal, but it's a wild card game. It's just a different deal because it's win or go home. That doesn't exist in college. Like your bowl game, that's the last game of the season. Football, there's no series. All of a sudden you're down touchdown in the second half. Like you can get tight fast, and they're going to be playing at home. And their last time that they were at home for the playoffs, I would say it was relatively easy, those two playoff games, right? So the crowd just went nuts. And I would say last year, they were winning in the NFC Championship game. That one went pretty well until it didn't. Until Tart dropped it. And I would say the first playoff game, they went on the road and started fast. Like you start fast in playoff games, just a little bit easier to breathe, especially for a younger player. But I would say what he's shown so far, I wouldn't expect him to like being frenetic and spraying the ball all over the place.
Yeah. I think, the one thing, and he's, for reference, this year he's 68%, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. Well, is it 68? These ESPN.com numbers.
Yeah, the update is 13-4, so it's like 67-7 or whatever. I rounded up. Yeah.
So Jimmy this year was 67, 16-4, Garoppolo. But so the numbers say they're very similar. And I think to really use Brock's numbers when you compare him to Jimmy's, you just need more than even 6 games. But I think the question with him is just going to be, how well does he protect the football with this defense, with these playmakers? I think we saw it again today, actually. 4-minute offense, like 4-minute offense before the end of the first half is, every broadcast tells you like, this is Kyle's favorite. And unless it's a big game and Jimmy's got the ball and then he waits to see what happens on first down.
Christian, see if you can get 17 yards in your first run. If you can't,
that's the beauty. You don't really have to push the ball down the field with that team. And yet, he'll let Brock cut it loose a little bit. But I thought that was a really good drive. I think it'll be interesting. It'd be kind of scary, but what happens if he throws, every quarterback in the history of time has had 2 interceptions and a half. How do you respond? All that type of thing. But the good news for him is if he throws 2 picks, his defense might hold the other team to, 2 field goals or 10 points, or like this Niners team generally doesn't let that turn into 14 if that were to occur. So
Jimmy's stats really since 19 after he tore his ACL, 69%, 67%, 68%, and 67% the last 4 years. That's really high, even in a league that's obviously it's much easier to have completion percentages well over 60 now than it was in 94, but you're 69, 68, 60, like that's pretty damn good. The numbers feel better than what I watched.
Well, can I give you his playoff numbers?
I bet they're pretty damn good.
60%, 60.6, 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
In the 4 games, or I guess 5 games.
Well, no, it's
6.
6 games.
Yeah,
for
he
Garoppolo.
wasn't as good in the playoffs for sure, right? Because the Packer game he was bad.
The Dallas game, he had he had 3 playoff games without a touchdown pass.
He threw a pick 6 in the Dallas game, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he only had 1 playoff game without a pick. How about that? He threw a pick in 5 of his 6 playoff games.
Yeah, so he wasn't as good. Part of it is harder. You're playing the best teams. I mean, that's going to be, it's going to be. He's going to be talked about a lot, right? Because a lot of people think this team can win the Super Bowl, right? Or can get to the Super Bowl. Winning is another animal. Like if you're playing the Chiefs, they beat you by 40 points, or the Bills. But they can win the NFC. And I think the main question is going to be, well, special teams are really good. Offensively, they're really explosive. Defensively, they've been consistently one of the best defenses in the league. It's just like they do have a rookie quarterback who's the last pick in the draft. Like that's really the main concern, right? Their coach has proven it. Their defense have proven it. Their defensive coaches have proven it that they can win in the playoffs. Can Brock Purdy win in the playoffs? And it's a fair question to ask. And honestly, we're just basing it on what we've seen. I feel pretty good about it. But we've seen crazy experiences in the playoffs before. Now, it's very, very difficult to play on the road. And we know for a fact that this 2 seed, they're getting, if they win next week, they're getting 2 home playoff games. So I would say it's a pretty easy landing spot. But if I want to go big picture, I mean, on the road, Philadelphia, that place would be pretty bananas, I would guess, right? If that's the NFC Championship game, Niners-Eagles. That'd be a tough environment for pick 266. He'd be like, well, I played at Oklahoma State, I played at Baylor. Which is not nothing. I mean, those places are loud, or Oklahoma, Iowa.
Yeah, I just the question is, it's the personality he's already displayed. Is that the personality he takes him into these games, right? If he is who he has appeared to be so far, you're okay.
262, my bad.
262. Did he throw a pick 6 in the Cowboy game? Somebody said he didn't.
But did the guy get tackled? I thought he scored, but maybe
did get called back. That was
no. Remember when Jimmy rolled out in the Cowboy game through the pick?
I do
thought
remember
the guy
that.
scored. Maybe he didn't score.
The callback on the interception. Although, did Brock have one of those too this year? I think he did. Interception called back.
Yes.
So I love a good interception. A defensive line, hands to the face of the right guard. First down for the offense. So
in fairness to that referee, he's just looking down the line of scrimmage, right? He's not paying attention to what's going on. He's just locked into the line.
It might be what happened. It just feels, the defensive lineman hands to the face of the offensive lineman feels like sometimes it could be a cheap penalty.
Trust me, guy. I've always hated the defensive holding